Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to do It Came From the Network. And if you're not familiar with It Came From the Network, this is where we do reviews of the weird, wild, campy, and sometimes just downright bad stuff you can find on formerly the WWE Network, but now Peacock. Going into this is a request made by a friend of the network, friend of the show, Jake Crooks. When I was talking about bringing back Heel Heat, he mentioned he'd like to see It Came From the Network, so I said, well, if I do bring it back, what show would you like to see? He said WCW Mayhem 1999. Now, I don't know if we're going to still consider him a friend after the review. No, I'm just kidding. He's a friend of the network. So he's a friend of the show. He's a friend of us. Let's jump right into this. Couple things I want to say before going into this. We grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. There is going to be 2 matches on this card that involve Chris Benoit. We are solely reviewing this as a wrestling show and trying to keep what Chris Benoit did separately from this show. So I'm not going to hold against WCW and the quality of this show something that happened almost a decade later. Yes, I feel differently about Chris Benoit than I did at the time. At the time, he was one of my favorite wrestlers. With what happened and knowing things that I know now, he's no longer one of my favorite wrestlers. But we're going to review it as strictly what it is. And if you heard that noise, that was me adjusting one of my lights was about to fall over. But anyhow, I digress. Jumping right into it. The first match of the night, there's a tournament to crown the vacant WCW World Championship. We have 2 semifinals and the finals tonight. So, on the first match, we get the aforementioned Chris Benoit versus Jeff Jarrett. I thought this was a solid match, probably my second favorite match of the card as far as just a match-wise. These two seem to work very well together. We did get to see during the match Creative Control, which is the Harris brothers and Dustin Rhodes all get involved, which is going to be a running thing through the show. There's a lot of interference on this show. There's a lot of outside involvement. And it was kind of overbooked. This was right in the height of Vince Russo running WCW era, so we're going to get a lot of that. I give the match... Chris Benoit picks up the win to advance to the finals. I give the match a 3. It was a really good match. I had high hopes that the pay-per-view would be better. I watched the pay-per-view back in '99 when it was originally aired, and this is the first time I've looked at it or anything on this show since then. So I had high hopes looking at the card and seeing this was one of the matches. It was solid. I can't detract it. I would have liked to see it without the outside crap, without the schmazzes. But it was a solid match to start the show. Next up, we go backstage to an interview with Disco Inferno, who's defending his Cruiserweight title. He gets attacked by Creative Control and Jeff Jarrett. Again, we're going to see this running through the entire show. Creative Control and Jeff Jarrett pretty much run amok on the show and kind of interfere in almost every match in some way or another. Then we get Disco comes out to defend his Cruiserweight Championship against Devon Courageous, who had Medusa as a valet. This match was a mess. Tony Marinara, who was Tony Mamaluke in ECW, came out with Disco. They were kind of doing a thing where Disco owed the family money kind of deal. It ends up getting it gets overbooked. just like a lot of stuff you're going to see on this card. There's too much outside interference. Evan Courageous picks up the win. I'm going to give this one a 1. There really wasn't nothing great about it. I think it would have fit on any Thursday Night Thunder show. Now, next match of the night for the newly formed Hardcore Championship. To determine who's going to be the first Hardcore Champion, or at least that's what they said on the show. Maybe it was just a new belt. I don't really remember the timeline of the Hardcore title in WCW at that point. But we have Norman Smiley versus Brian Knobbs. And Knobbs had Jimmy Hart with him. Norman Smiley was in the full gimmick. They were in Canada, so he was wearing, I believe it was Toronto, because he was wearing a Toronto Ty Domi jersey with goalie pads. He would do this a lot in the towns he was in. He would wear football gear for a town if it was a football town, kind of during his matches. This match was a mess. I like hardcore matches. I like the style. I like hardcore wrestling. I'm a huge ECW fan. But this was like, for you older folks, if you recorded a movie off a TV on a VCR on a VHS tape, and then recorded from that VHS tape to another VHS tape, it's kind of like what this was. This was WCW doing WWE's version of hardcore, which was a pale comparison of ECW's version of hardcore. So you had the stupid, silly gimmicks. And for the younger people watching that weren't around at the time, think of the 24/7 title and what they do with that. There was a lot of that. Like, they threw cardboard boxes at each other. They threw bread at each other. There was a spot in the elevator where they go in the elevator and Jimmy Hart's trying to hit Norman Smiley. When the doors reopen, he hits Knobbs instead of Smiley, which lends to Smiley winning, which leads to Knobbs and Jimmy Hart getting a little thing afterwards. Overall, I give it a 1. Another bad match on the show. Another just not interesting, not fun to watch kind of thing. Next up, we have the Revolution versus the Filthy Animals. And representing the Revolution, we have Asia, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko versus Torrie Wilson, Eddie Guerrero, and Kidman. And this was an elimination match. I didn't bother to write down the orders of elimination. This, again, was overbooked. You had Shane Douglas and Conan interfering at different times. You had the tease of, with Shane Douglas on commentary, that they wanted to get their hands on Torrie Wilson. It wasn't good. It was better than the last two matches. The Saturn picks up the win, last pinning Torrie Wilson. I'm going to give this one a 2. It could have been better with the people involved. I would have liked to take out Asia, take out Torrie Wilson. I would have rather seen Saturn and Dean Malenko versus Eddie Guerrero and Kidman any day of the week. But we get what we get. Next up, we have a backstage interview with Buff Bagwell, who's about to wrestle Curt Hennig in a loser must retire match. And again, Jeff Jarrett and Creative Control attack Bagwell. We take it to the match. It's Bagwell versus Hennig. I had, again, high hopes for this. Curt Hennig, one of the great wrestlers of all time. Bagwell, a solid wrestler. He's not bad. This match, for whatever reason, it just didn't click. They didn't work together well. Bagwell picked up the win, making Curt Hennig retire, which I don't remember how long that stipulation set, but it definitely wasn't his last match. I'm going to give the match a 1. Again, just another bad match on the show. Now, next up, we had probably the other match that I liked a lot on this show, if that makes sense. I know I just bumbled all through that. This is another semi-final match. It is Sting versus Bret the Hitman Hart. And this I was looking forward to. I remembered this back then, I remembered it being rather good, and I remember all of their meetings being rather good. This lived up to this. This was a good match. We did have some interference. Lex Luger came out, caused what would be a disqualification. But Bret said he didn't want to win that way, so they restarted the match. Again, more outside crap coming into the match, more just too much. It was a lot of this. A lot of what brings this card down is overbooking. As you can see, the talent level on this card is insanely good. So there should have been a lot better than what we got, but we got what we got. This match ended up with Bret Hart winning. I give it a 3. I thought it was really good. It had a chance to be great, but with the Luger run-in, with the vibe of the show going the way it was, it just, to me, it took away again from the overall of it. And again, that was another light issue I was having over here now. But anyway, I digress. Next up, we have a dog collar match between Vampiro and Berlin. Vampiro comes out with Jerry Only of the Misfits. Berlin has the Wall. We have Dr. Dusty Williams in Oklahoma on commentary. Probably the worst thing that's ever happened in wrestling, other than legitimate injuries and deaths. The worst gimmick that's ever happened in Oklahoma, making fun of a guy that had medical issues. Yeah, it's bad. But anyway, I digress. Much like everything else on this card, it was overbooked and overly interference. Both Jerry Lynn and the Wall get involved. The Wall wrestles more of this match than Berlin does. Vampiro finds a way to pick up a win after there's dissension between Berlin and the Wall. I'm going to give this one a 1. It just, again, it is what it is. It just wasn't special, and it wasn't great for me. Next, we have Lex Luger, who's saying he had a neck injury from the run-in earlier. He's going up against Ming. This was in Lex Luger as a total package. And another one with 2021 eyes that I can't help but look at differently, like Chris Benoit. Luger having Elizabeth with him at the time, it only brings up bad memories. But again, I digress. I'm going to try and keep it in. Luger wrestling Ming, the supposed injury, but on commentary, Tony Schiavone points out that maybe he's wearing a neck brace to block the goozle, which was Ming's move. We see the end where Elizabeth fumbles a macing spot, ends up macing Luger instead of Ming. Ming picks up the win. It wasn't good. It was bad, and these are two guys that I like more than I liked in this match. I like Ming a whole lot. He's a guy I think is one of the most criminally underrated wrestlers of all time. And I like Luger more than most people do. I think Luger gets a lot of flack, but I think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for. This match just wasn't a good match for either of them. I'm going to give this one a 1. Just overall, again, overbooked. Flubbing of the finish, an overbooked finish, everything about it. The problem with this match is the same problem that went all through the night. Next up, we have an open challenge from Scott Hall, who at the time was a U.S. champion and was awarded the TV title because Rick Steiner was injured and couldn't arrive. So he defends the belts against whoever wants a shot, and out comes Booker T. I thought this was going to be good. I had high hopes. Again, these are two guys that I rather like. The match was okay. Again, we get interference by Jeff Jarrett and Creative Control. We get Midnight, who, if you remember, not the Midnight Express or the Midnight Rockers, but Midnight was a female valet for Booker T, a very bodybuilder-looking woman, much like the China and Asia earlier on the show. So we get a lot of interference again. Scott Hall picks up the win. It's just... It suffers from the same thing the whole card is. I keep saying this. I know it's a broken record, but overbooked, too much interference, didn't just let two talented wrestlers go out and wrestle. It just makes no sense to me. I give the match a 1. I expect better from both these guys, to be honest with you. Next up, I didn't think it would get any worse, but we have David Flair versus Kimberly. This was a train wreck. Again, overbooked. Canyon and DDP come out. Arn Anderson comes out. There's no winner in the match. The match just kind of goes away. There's an injury angle where this is when David Flair was attacking people with a crowbar. He attacks Arn Anderson after Arn Anderson helped him. I don't know. I have to give this, I know I said 1 is the worst, but this is probably a -3. That's how bad it was. This is probably one of the worst wrestling matches I've seen in my life, and I've seen some really bad ones. 40 years of being a wrestling fan, I've seen a lot. And this has to go up there in my top 10 worst matches of all time. It just was really bad. And with no point to it. And I'm probably going to forget it within 3 days. I mean, it's just that bad. Moving on from that, we have Sid Vicious versus Bill Goldberg in an I Quit match. Again, I've seen better from these guys. This match was okay at its very best. Goldberg picks up the win when Sid Vicious passes out. He doesn't officially quit, so I want to say I know they did some more coming off of that. But it was just... On another show, it might have got a better rating, but at this point I was burnt out and I just didn't care anymore about what was happening. I'm going to give this a 1. Goldberg picked up the win. At this point, we're 11 matches into a 12-match show, and I was just tired of watching it. I didn't want to watch anymore, but I had to finish it. I was at that point by the time the Vampiro match started, by the way. By the time Vampiro and Berlin started, I was already over watching this, so a lot of the back half of this is based on judgment off of what happened the first half of the night. So take that with a grain of salt when you're listening to this review. These aren't matches in a vacuum, it's an overall review, and they did not build this card well at all. The main event of the evening was the finals for the vacant WCW title. Bret the Hitman Hart versus the Crippler Chris Benoit. I, again, had high hopes. I didn't particularly remember this match as well. I more remembered their match they had on, I want to say, Nitro, where they went 45 minutes and as a tribute to Owen Hart. I want to say about 8 to 10 months before this. This match could have been an all-time great match, but again, we get Hall and Nash interfere. Goldberg comes out. There's a whole thing. It just gets overbooked, and it just gets to the point where it's bad. And you take two of the great wrestlers, in-ring talents of all time, and you make me not give a crap at all about them. It's WCW in '99, WCW under Vince Russo. Bret picks up the win to become the WCW champion. They play up that it was his lifelong dream to be a WCW champion, where WCW didn't exist his whole life, so what are you going to do? This was good. If it would have been a standalone, I probably would have rated it better, but the stench of the whole show affected my viewing of this. Overall, I'm going to give it a 2. My third favorite match of the night, between behind the other two matches that they were involved in, Benoit versus Jarrett and Sting versus Bret. Sting versus Bret was my favorite match of the night, with Benoit and Jarrett being just a little bit behind. This, to me, wasn't as good as either of those two matches, but it could have been a lot better than both of those two matches. Just overbooked again, over everything on the show. Too much interference, too much of Russo on the show. With all that being said, looking at the card overall, I'm going to give this a 1. This was a bad show. I don't recommend watching it. Maybe go back and watch those 3 specific matches. Other than that, there's really nothing on here worth going back for again. Jake, I don't know if you... I know you probably did this knowing it was a bad show. Hopefully this isn't one of your favorite shows of all time and I just crapped all over it. But let me know. Hit me up down here. Let me know. I know you've watched these, so I know you know I watch the bad shows on these, so I'm guessing that's why you recommended this. Probably one of the worst ones I've rated on here. Gotta be right up there. Not as bad as December to Dismember, but it's gotta be one of the worst ones I've ranked on here. But to me, overall, overbooked, too much Russo. It's just what it is. And Russo didn't even appear on screen. It just, you could tell it's Russo. But I'm going to give this a 1. That would be my opinion on WCW Mayhem 1999. With all that being said, make sure you smash a like, share this, leave a comment if you watched this, if you particularly liked it, if you thought it was bad. Leave some suggestions for other shows you'd like to see me review. With the caveat being they have to be on the Peacock Network, so I do have access for them. I might go outside of that now that there is no WWE Network. If it's on YouTube, leave me a comment there. If I can find it on YouTube, I'll review it and let me know. Let me know what you'd like to see me review of these old shows. With that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.